Hi guys, welcome back to BookBreak. My name is Katie, and as if you can't tell, I am on the spectacular moors of Yorkshire. So to celebrate Emily Bronte's 200th birthday, I thought I would bring you on a literary tour of Yorkshire. So we began our literary journey by visiting the lovely traditional village of Haworth in West Yorkshire. The Brontes were born in Thornton, just a few miles down the road, but lived and wrote most of their novels at Haworth Parsonage, which has now been turned into a museum. Haworth is a typical English village with picture-perfect cafes and shops, and at the top of the steep street paved with cobblestones is the Black Bull pub. This pub is famous for being visited by Branwell Bronte when he was alive, and unsurprisingly is said to be haunted. It even featured on TV's Most Haunted. Right in the centre there is a school that was built in 1832, where Charlotte, Branwell, Emily and Anne all taught. In the centre of the village there is St Michael's and All Angels Church. This is where all the Brontes, except Anne, are buried, along with their servants and the Haworth sexton and close friend of Branwell Bronte, John Brown, and his daughter Martha. Right next to the church is the Parsonage Museum, which is where the Brontes lived. The museum has lovely little gardens where you can see tributes to Emily, and the parsonage can be seen right from the church. So Mum and I have purchased tickets from the ticket office, so now we're heading into the museum and she's really embarrassed, so I'm not going to film that. But yeah, we have our tickets and we're heading into the museum. Probably the most famous room in the museum is the dining room, because this is where Jane Eyre and Wuthering Heights were written. This is the room the sisters would sit and discuss their writing. The room has a real warmth and snugness about it. It just feels lived in. There are the sisters' belongings littered all over the room. The table in the centre has ink blots from when they used to write, and if you look really carefully there's a small letter E carved into the wood. In the house is also Mr. Bronte's study, where he carried out his parish business. The piano he owned was mainly played by Emily and Anne. In 2017, visitors to the museum were invited to recreate the lost manuscript of Wuthering Heights. Almost 10,000 visitors copied one line each, and the completed manuscript is now on display to celebrate the bicentenary of Emily Bronte's birth. Each different room in the museum houses personal belongings of the Brontes, their writing desks, their letters and drawings, even some of their clothing and their bonnets. You get a really good idea of what the sisters were like and their personalities. I don't think a bonnet suits me. Once we had finished exploring the museum, it was time for a walk. We have finished at the Parsonage Museum, and now we've just come up onto the moors. We've changed into our trainers, so we mean business, and see if we can find the waterfalls and a place called Top Withens, which is falling on camera. Basically some ruins. Yeah.
To the right, we've got more landscape farming area.
Yeah, so we've got lovely moorside to our left, and to our right we have farmland. So the museum and church backs onto the spectacular Yorkshire Moors, the setting of Emily's Wuthering Heights. We're a bit further up, and because it's so hot today, the sheep have decided to hide in the shade, as you can see, all the way along there and all the way along there.
Good old stone walling.
Yeah. Something about walking the moors on a hot summer's day instead of a misty, windy afternoon didn't feel quite right, but it did lead to some rather lovely views. We followed the path, walked for about 2 miles, and then we came across the Bronte Chair. This is apparently where the Brontes were said to sit and tell stories to each other while playing on the moors. It's become quite a touristy spot and people like to sit on the chair and have their photos taken. So we decided to make the most of this opportunity. Around the same area is the Bronte Bridge and the Bronte waterfalls. Around this time of year, it isn't quite as spectacular, but makes for a fabulous picnic spot. So I have come up a bit further up to see Top Withens. I am at Top Withens. It's sort of an old farmhouse, but it's basically just ruined now, overlooking the moors. It is said to be the inspiration for the setting of Wuthering Heights. So as you can see here, you have this spectacular view of the moors. I've got to admit, I've come on the sunniest day, on one of the sunniest weeks of the year in England. And I don't think this quite captures the sort of moody, rainy, atmosphere that she was going for in her book, but nonetheless it is absolutely beautiful. It's said that when she wrote the moorland setting of Wuthering Heights, this is the sort of view that she had in mind. I hope you guys enjoyed the literary tour. Do make sure that if you're ever in Yorkshire that you do check out these wonderful locations. The views from the moors are spectacular. The walk is lovely. We've actually done 7 miles of walking, which isn't too bad. I'll give myself a pat on the back because it is very hot. I do actually have the Macmillan Collector's Edition of Wuthering Heights here with me, so I think I'm just going to have a little sit down, a nice relax after my 7-mile walk, and have a well good read. Thanks for watching guys, see you next time.